The following podcast contains explicit language. You're listening to the Cinematography podcast presented by Hot Rod Cameras, a program about the art, craft, and philosophy of the moving image and the people who make it happen. Coming to you from the world headquarters of Hot Rod Cameras in Hollywood, California, are your hosts, Ben Rock and Illya Friedman.
Welcome. I believe this is year 4. We are here today with Jenelle Riley from Variety magazine and also one of my closest friends in the whole world. Thanks for coming on the show, Jenelle.
Ooh, this is awkward because I don't really consider you in my closest circle.
Oh, man.
But one of my favorite acquaintances.
Harsh. I'm sad.
No, that's not true. Remember, I called you my best friend once.
You did.
And again, your wife won't let me live that down.
17 years ago. And now...
It was at the screening for Nightcrawler with the director.
Ben had a question in the audience, and I was like, oh, that's my best friend.
It was
Ben,
very nice.
I have to call on him, yes.
Ben is still sailing on that. He's still sailing on that best friend comment. He mentioned it to me right before we started recording here.
He's still sailing on meeting Dan Gilroy that night, I think.
That was cool. Actually, you introducing me to Sparks is still like up in the top 10 moments of my entire life.
I love them so much.
You introduced me to Christopher Nolan. You introduced me to David Fincher. And that was awesome, but Sparks is like the
wait a second.
top.
And you know who didn't even make your top 3 was Steven Spielberg. I happen to know Jenelle also introduced you to...
And Guillermo del Toro.
That's true. Oh,
yes.
Man, I'm so busted.
Wow.
No, it's just... You know what's funny is I forgot you were there with David Fincher, and we rode in a creepy elevator with him.
That was super weird.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like the Spielberg thing was like a shit my pants moment. Like I touched his velvety genius hand and shook it and just sat there and listened to him talk and, basked in the glory of probably the most significant American director of all time. But still, Sparks is like, those guys are awesome. I just
cool.
love Sparks.
And you guys talked a long time, too.
We did. Jesse Merlin, our friend Jesse Merlin was in the audience and he didn't even approach us. I'm like, Jesse, you should have come down. And he's as much of a Sparks nerd as I am, if not more. Anyway, but we're not here to talk about Sparks.
Why aren't we here to talk about Sparks?
I would love to talk. I could talk about them all day. They have
I can actually tie this all together. They have Cate Blanchett in their new video.
In their new video, Cate Blanchett of Tar. So let's use that as a segue, and we're going to talk about the best cinematography nominees for 2023. It's actually a pretty interesting class of cinematographers because there's really only one previous winner in the whole group, and that's obviously Roger Deakins for Empire of Light. But the list is All Quiet on the Western Front, James Friend, Bardo, False Chronicle of a Handful of Truths, Darius Khondji, Elvis, Mandy Walker, Empire of Light, Roger Deakins, and Tar, Florian Hoffmeister. And Jenelle, you suggested we wait till after the ASC Awards, and I'm very glad you did.
Me too,
Me three.
Because history was made. Mandy Walker, the first woman to win at ASC, now could be the first woman to win in this category at the Academy Awards.
It's a big
I think it's going to happen.
For sure.
I think it very well could happen. It very well could happen. And, Mandy Walker's been on the show. She's awesome. She's been doing amazing work for a long time, and it's her first nomination.
Wow. And the two things that she needs to win, really, Everything Everywhere All at Once is not nominated in this category, which is crazy to me.
I have been saying from the moment I saw that, I was like, this needs to win all the Oscars, and you can't complain about how many it's been nominated for. But Larkin, Seiple, the DP, was robbed, in my opinion.
What do you think happened there? I mean, they've been nominated everywhere else, and the cinematography is brilliant.
I don't know if maybe it's that Larkin is on the young side for a cinematographer. So, like maybe the next thing he does with the Daniels, he'll get nominated. I don't know what he needs to do because that movie looks amazing.
It's insane to me. I mean, not that all these nominees aren't deserving, but like...
I mean, I couldn't say that there's one in here that I would say like, oh, well, clearly lose that one because they're all great. But I do think that Everything Everywhere All at Once...
though, is he really all that?
He's like a 13-time loser. I think he was nominated a lot of times and a lot of times didn't win. So, the odds are still...
Yeah, he's a bigger loser than winner if you think about it.
But he's the only one on this list who's ever won before. And in fact, Darius Khondji, I think, is the only other one who has been nominated before. He was nominated in 1997 for Evita.
Wow. First of all, I didn't know Evita was nominated for Best Cinematography, so that's a new one. But secondly, I didn't know that he did that.
Yeah, so if there's somebody else on this list, I'm not necessarily pushing for anyone in particular because, again, Everything Everywhere All at Once would have been my choice all along. But I got to say, Darius Kanji is sometimes the Oscars are like a Lifetime Achievement Award, and somebody who's done amazing work for years and years and years. Darius Kanji is one of those people who I can't believe the man doesn't have a statue already. He's so amazing. I'd like to retroactively give him one for Seven, which might be the most copied movie style ever done.
It's possible.
And by the way, Bardo I really enjoyed Bardo. I know a lot of people are mixed on it, but I thought it was beautiful. I thought he did a wonderful job.
Here's what I'll say about Bardo. I'm not the world's biggest Iñárritu fan. I don't dislike his movies, but he's not my favorite. I don't always go with him on his journey as readily as I would, say, Guillermo del Toro, one of his good friends. But I thought in terms of design and construction of shots, Bardo might be the best out of this group. I understand the love for Mandy Walker, and I think Elvis is a gorgeous looking film. I think that the look of it is the best thing it has going for it. But man, Bardo is just like bonkers. The design of the shots, the kind of surrealism, absurdism, the complexity when you look at it, like how hard it was to pull stuff off. And I'm not saying All Quiet on the Western Front couldn't say a lot of the same things. It's not surreal, but it's like complex. But
you got to include Tar in that though as well too, because Tar, it's the other end of the spectrum. It's realism. It's super realism, and it's
restrained.
Absolutely, but it's like the way those shots are put together all throughout that, all the high angle shots, the musicians entering the stage, and all kinds of the drama, the low angle shots as she's conducting. It's like there's so much stuff that kind of goes back and forth, and just I got to say that I think Tar absolutely deserves to be there. And if you want to talk about maybe something that is more subtle, but equally as beautiful, I think you have to. I could watch that whole movie muted and have an incredible experience.
The other thing Mandy Walker, I think, needed in order to make history is the movie needed to be a big crowd pleaser. And I'm telling you, this movie has been on HBO Max for some time now. People still show up to screenings of this movie. They are packed. They're the busiest screenings I've ever seen. People love this movie. They love watching it on the big screen. And not just the Q&As where Austin Butler is in attendance. Like my friend does a lot of tech and below the line Q&As for this movie, and she says the audiences are still packing them in.
Wow.
People really love Elvis, the movie.
Yeah. Well, and the guy.
Yeah.
He's a little popular.
Yeah, and we talked to Mandy Walker. We talked to her right after COVID hit, and she was in a show that was shut down. Elvis was shut down because of COVID, because Tom Hanks got COVID.
Yep.
And so when we talked to her, it was right at that time. So we didn't really talk about Elvis, but she had done a lot of work with Baz Luhrmann. And Baz Luhrmann is one of those directors where I watch his stuff and I'm like, I love the way he puts together a scene in a sequence. And it's like the whole movie feels like it's going at the pace of a trailer. Like it's just cramming and cramming and cramming. And it just never lets go. And we talk a little bit about how she works with him and like that process of creating that stuff. So I would recommend anyone who's interested to go back and listen to it. Unfortunately, we don't have an interview with her about Elvis specifically. But I do think that people like Iñárritu and Baz Luhrmann have like such a specific approach to the way they do scene work and the way they construct a sequence that it's interesting to hear from their cinematographers how imagine being a cinematographer and you're given Elvis. How would you look at that script and say, oh, here's how we'll do it, knowing of course that Baz Luhrmann is going to direct it.
I thought she did a beautiful job on Mulan also a couple of years ago, and Hidden Figures, another Best Picture nominee that she wasn't nominated for, and I really thought she should have been.
So I actually feel like we should kind of address the elephant in the room too, which is, and you brought it up, Jenelle, no woman has ever won the Best Cinematography Award.
And only 3 have been nominated.
Yeah. A couple of years ago, I thought Rachel Morrison was going to go for it. And I was kind of surprised that she didn't get it. Lost to Roger Deakins to, I believe, Blade Runner 2049.
I think people didn't really like her film. They liked her and they really respected it, but there wasn't that love for the movie that it needed.
Yeah, and if Black Panther had been nominated, maybe she would have.
I'm actually shocked she wasn't nominated for Black Panther, and I think she should have won. I thought that last year Ari Wagner was going to take it for Power of the Dog.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, and also, actually, speaking of comic book stuff, another notable omission here to me is Greg Fraser for The Batman, which maybe owes a lot to Darius Kanji and Seven.
Yeah.
But, he won last year for Dune. And I was kind of I thought the cinematography of The Batman was one of the best. I mean, I really like that movie, but the cinematography was one of the most striking things about it. And, for a comic book movie, it was very dark and risky, even for Batman.
I think it might have been too dark is the issue.
Yeah.
Greg Fraser won last year for Dune cinematography. That's who beat Ari Wagner. I couldn't remember. But I was actually surprised she didn't win last year. I thought if it was going to happen, it was going to happen last year.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's kind of a shame in our industry that a woman has never won, ever. Yeah. I mean, shocking. And in fact, all three of the women nominated have been nominated within, the last 5 years?
Yeah, because Mudbound, right, was Rachel Morrison's nomination. And that was a 2017 film?
Yeah, I believe she was the first woman ever nominated. We had just done the interview with her 2 weeks before she got nominated, and that was when I was still editing them, so it would take 6 months. And Illya was like, "You got to get that out right now, man."
Yeah, she's fantastic.
Yeah, Rachel's amazing.
We should probably mention some of the other movies that were, before the nominations came out, sort of front runners. I kept hearing people talk about Top Gun. Top Gun was going to get nominated for cinematography.
Yeah.
A surprising omission, honestly.
And Claudio Miranda, he won, of course, for Life of Pi, and it has the incredible flight sequences, which, almost all of that sort of stuff, all the main stuff, that's real. That's not that's not just a couple of CG planes flying through the sky. They do a tremendous amount of actual plane work, and it's another one that's just sort of fallen by the wayside now, and I don't hear people talk about it the way they did 3 months ago, but for a while that seemed to be the front runner.
Shocking how few of the Best Picture nominees were nominated for. I think it's only Elvis. Okay, Elvis, Tar, and All Quiet on the Western Front, but Banshees of Inisherin, Fabelmans,
which looks great.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Banshees of Inisherin, I think, also belongs on this. I mean,
I agree.
I think that we actually had kind of an embarrassment of riches of movies, and it's a diversity of styles, a diversity of approaches. The Banshees of Inisherin maybe in a sense is a little bit like Tar in that it's restrained. It's not showy in its cinematography, but it doesn't make it any less beautiful.
No Avatar, as we've already said. No Everything Everywhere All at Once. No Triangle of Sadness.
Yeah.
Kind of surprised me. Yeah. Really interesting to me.
Maybe the bar has been risen so high now for cinematography. I don't know. It's maybe there needs to be more nominees in this category.
And I will say this about Empire of Light. Roger Deakins is incapable of filming a movie that doesn't look amazing.
Yeah.
But, maybe this is more about the movie itself. Not a bad movie, a perfectly good movie, but not a movie in which the cinematography feels like a star of it. And even though you could probably say the same thing about Tar, there's something about the minimalism. I don't know if that's the exact word, but
I think that is the exact word. It's a minimalist movie for sure.
They had some beautiful For Your Consideration ads for Empire of Light that picked very specific shots. Like when they're on the roof and the fireworks are going off and, and also I just think the title, Empire of Light, and Roger Deakins' name and, the love of cinema.
And by no means am I dissing Roger Deakins at all.
No, of course not.
He's one of the best who ever lived. And I'm not even saying 1917 obviously is a movie that smacks of way more a very specific approach had to be taken to make that movie work. And it's like a magic trick that it works. And so nothing against Empire of Light. It's just a damn fine, really good looking movie, whereas a lot of these other ones, All Quiet on the Western Front is amazing, but
stunning.
I have seen other war movies on par with it. They were all Oscar caliber movies like Saving Private Ryan or 1917. And maybe this is why my eye keeps going to Bardo. And I don't know, I may live to eat these words, but it's one, I can't believe Darius Kanji's never won an Oscar. He's done
worked with everyone. All the greats. And
he's a friggin' chameleon. He doesn't have a specific, he goes from Seven to doing The Beach with Danny Boyle. His stuff is so different looking and just gorgeous. And it's interesting to see him work with Iñárritu and kind of apply that style, very wide angle lens, but also deeply surreal.
Person I'm a little surprised not to see here, even though I know the movie wasn't totally embraced, from Babylon, is Lena Sandgren.
Yeah.
Previous winner. I thought whatever issues people have with Babylon, the below the line talent, they at least respected. It got nominated, in a few categories. And I thought he did an amazing job.
I do think Babylon kind of got short shrift. And to a degree, I understand that it doesn't quite fit perfectly into a category. Although what's interesting to me about Babylon is the Oscars love movies about movies. I mean, frankly, Empire of Light is a movie about cinema, or takes place largely in cinema.
But it's about loving cinema, and Babylon is not a love letter. It's like a poison pen.
I guess
and
a little bit.
By the way, I'm saying this as a person who really likes Babylon.
Yeah,
you know?
I feel like I've spent a lot of time defending it. I was not prepared when I went to the screening, and I think I messaged you about this at the time, Jenelle. Like, I had no idea it was 3 hours and 9 minutes long.
That's the other thing. It's too long. I mean, it should have been a mini-series in some ways.
Yeah. But I mean, there was so much to like in that, and it looked so great. We talked to Linus right after I saw it, and it's some pretty strong work. But also, Babylon got press for flopping, and that maybe kind of killed it in regards to getting lots of Oscar nominations. Even though
it also came out really late, and it came with a lot of hype and expectation, and almost maybe sort of this feeling that Damien Chazelle needed to be taken down a peg to a certain degree.
I'd say it's my favorite film that he's made since Whiplash. And there's a scene in it that I can't shut up about, which is like where they're trying to film with sound for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
And the first AD loses his mind, and it's just so funny.
That's my friend PJ.
Is it?
Yeah.
But yeah, that scene and that sequence to me is just brilliant. I mean, we probably should have done a sidebar about like what were the films that we would have liked to have seen get nominated, because I feel like there are several. Although I don't know if we all agree. Everything Everywhere All at Once to me, like Illya, do you feel like? I feel like
so confused. I mean, they even nominated the song from it.
Yeah,
they love the movie.
Well, to that I would say like look for Larkin Seiple to get nominated for the next noteworthy thing he does that he shoots that gets a lot of press or something. Like, I feel like he's got to be on the radar. Also, like, I feel like the Daniels just took a massive step towards mainstream success, that people who do work as creative as what they do, people rarely see somebody outside of like David Lynch get the level of success that they are getting with this.
Yeah, and they weren't trying to be mainstream. That's what part of what I love about it.
Yeah.
Also, Larkin shot To Leslie. A very different, very beautifully shot movie that came out last year as well.
I'm actually a little surprised that Hoyte van Hoytema didn't get a little bit more attention for Nope, and especially since there is a cinematographer, character in the movie.
Yeah.
Well, Nope also got shafted in the visual effects category.
Nope just got shafted completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people who, I remember on Twitter, not that I should be taking Twitter that seriously, but people were like freaking out that it didn't get a lot of Oscar love. And I was like, are you aware of Oscars and horror movies? Like, the Oscars notoriously don't, like, every once in, like, the fact that Get Out got all the love that it got is such an outlier. The only other one I can think of is like The Silence of the Lambs. It doesn't surprise me when the Academy just ignores a genre film, not just horror, sci-fi, fantasy. Like, it's more unusual when they do acknowledge those movies.
Especially with that sci-fi or supernatural bent. Because, like, I consider Silence of the Lambs to be, a thriller, because it is very realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the second you start introducing supernatural elements, I think voters kind of go like, oh, nope, that's in the fun category. That's not,
Yeah, we're here for serious stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Like Bardo. Bardo is just such a bonkers movie. It's very impressive to me that it's in this category. It's not surprising, because Iñárritu is anything he makes is going to get Oscar attention at least. Yeah.
Although I'm surprised this one didn't do better, because it has a wonderful lead performance. And like it didn't even break into the international film category.
So let's put our money on the table. I'll start with you, Illya. Who do you think is going to win?
I think I got to go with Mandy Walker. I think I got to say Elvis, I think, is going to win. I think coming out of the win at the ASC, I think there's some heat and momentum behind her. I think she wins it.
Well, let me ask you, the winner was already chosen before the ASC Awards. Like, the winner of whoever won the Oscar is already determined now.
No, they're still voting through Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
Tomorrow,
so winning the ASC Award could actually have an influence, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, that might change
And I think seeing the reaction of like, well, first of all, the seal of approval that the ASC has signed off on Mandy Walker. Because again, Elvis is so entertaining, you almost feel guilty
God damn it, this should be torture.
Right?
I should be tortured watching all of these Oscar movies. So, Jenelle, who do you think goes home with the Oscar gold?
I have to go with Mandy Walker. I mean, the only person that I could even make an argument for, I don't even know if there is an argument to be made. It would be dumb to go against Mandy Walker, and frankly, sexist.
So I'm gonna be both dumb and sexist.
You're doing it.
Ooh, I can't wait.
I'm saying Darius Kanji wins.
That was
because,
what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the person is All Quiet on the Western Front because there's obviously
James
a
Friend,
deep, quiet love for this movie because it keeps showing up and it won BAFTA, and BAFTA actually shares overlap with Oscars, and it is a beautiful looking film.
Oh yeah,
and it's the, I don't want to say easy choice, but like, look at it. It's a sprawling epic and it's beautiful and it's a war film. It'd be very easy to see that one winning, but I got to stick with Mandy.
I think you're both right. I think Mandy probably will win. And I am absolutely not voting against Mandy. I just think Darius Kanji is someone who has been he has been shooting amazing movies for like 30 years. And maybe this isn't his time. And I do think it's important for a woman to win, but I'm just going to hedge my bet and say Darius gets the gold. I want to see him win sometime. I
would have no objection to that. He did an amazing job. Same with James Friend. I mean, like I said, all of them are brilliant, but
all of them are brilliant. I mean, like, I'm not going to say I would be disappointed if Roger Deakins won. I just think that cinematography wise, it's not like, I don't put it on a pedestal with Blade Runner 2049 or 1917 or any of the other movies he made that have a year in the title, or any of the amazing work he did with the Coen brothers.
Yeah, I think he's there because he's Roger Deakins.
Nothing wrong with that. Give me all the Roger Deakins movies ever. He's never made a movie that looked bad.
I think it's interesting that none of us, though, said that he was our pick. None of us said, like, oh, no, he's going to go for his third Oscar win here. So should he really be there compared to some of the other people that we talked about who weren't there? Yeah, you're shaking your head at me. So you think he should? 100%?
I mean, I think he's deserving because he did a brilliant job, but would he be there if he wasn't Roger Deakins? Probably not.
Yeah, I agree. And I actually don't, it's not the fault of him as a cinematographer or the fault of the cinematography in the movie. I don't think Empire of Light it's great. We're splitting hairs about the best of the best of the best. But if you said to me, without knowing who the DP was, watch Empire of Light, watch Everything Everywhere All at Once, which of these should be nominated for best cinematography? Everything Everywhere would definitely steal it for me. Or, we talked to Russell Carpenter about Avatar 2. It's like the process of cinematography was just exploded into a million pieces and he had to manage each piece. Like the job of being the cinematographer on Avatar 2 is so much more complicated than being a cinematographer on any other movie that's ever been made before.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah.
There is one movie I wonder if you think, I would like to know what you thought of the cinematography, and that's Doubt. The John Patrick Shanley adaptation.
Yeah, from several years ago.
Yes.
Yeah, I was like,
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
I had a moment of like, was there a new movie called Doubt?
No, there were quite a few people who did not like the way that was shot. I think people's objections were more with the direction than the filming, if that makes sense. I think I think maybe John Patrick Shanley directed one movie before, but it's a very static film.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with being static. It's something that, like, actually a lot of times when we have DPs on here, they kind of brag about it, because I think that there's a push from producers often to have kind of superficial movement. The CSI Miami-fication of cinematography, where it's like shoot everything from, two dollies that are moving in opposite directions. And so we've had more than one DP on here, including people who shoot a lot of TV, who take pride in, like, instead of having lots of extra movement, like find the perfect frame. Or I think a little bit about like David Fincher's Zodiac, which, like I think of David Fincher's early work as being very kinetic, and Zodiac was the first time I saw a David Fincher movie where it's like he didn't really have the camera move unless it was necessary. And so I don't, Deakins shot Doubt. I don't remember it well enough, like the cinematography. I mean, it came out in 2008. I just looked it up. So, I definitely saw it in the theater. I remember loving it. John Patrick Shanley is a famous theater, playwright. I wish I had a better answer.
If we're going back through like what we think are Roger Deakins misses here. Look, I thought Doubt looked pretty good. I thought Doubt certainly it looked better than pretty good. I think that you're right. He doesn't have a bad looking movie, and we got to go back a long way for this, but 1996 was Courage Under Fire. Do you remember Courage Under Fire? It was Denzel Washington.
I do remember it.
It's a great movie, Meg Ryan. But do you think of it as a Roger Deakins movie? Do you think of it as like...
When you say that, it makes sense that it's a Roger Deakins movie, but I wouldn't know. Same with In the Valley of Ella, which is a movie that I weirdly think about a lot. Like, I was just thinking about it the other day, and I happened to look it up and see it was Roger Deakins. I was like, That makes sense, but I wouldn't have known that. By the way, he did 3 movies that year. That was the same year he did Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford and No Country for Old Men.
And the Assassination of Jesse James, the reason to watch that movie is his cinematography is just stunning. It's like some of the best ever. Like I remember in the early-ish, it was like the early to mid-90s, he did Shawshank Redemption and Dead Man Walking and the Hudsucker Proxy all within a year or two of each other.
Yep.
And none of them look the same.
And Secret Garden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy crap. I mean, The Shawshank Redemption is a movie that wasn't really appreciated at its time for the genius level work that was going on in it. But that was a movie that, in my opinion, fired on every cylinder. Great script, great directing, great casting, and cinematography right at the center of it. I would hang any frame of that on my wall. That movie is so great looking.
I think that there's a period of time, and you just named off this very, very good time for Deakins movies. But if you look, I'd say between probably like 2009 and 2012, though, and these are not necessarily all the biggest movies that he's known for, but, Skyfall does fall in there, but In Time was right before that. I love that he was the cinematography consultant for Rango. Rango is brilliant and looks amazing, too. True Grit, A Serious Man, and even Revolutionary Road, which is also incredibly is a wonderful looking movie.
Sicario.
Yeah, well, that was a little later. It's like
2015.
Yeah, a little later. But yeah, you're right.
It's just going to turn into a Roger Deakins fan
Yeah, I don't know that we're ever
right.
going to get Roger Deakins on the podcast, but I mean, like, our love for him is unending, and I feel like it's important to say that. Like, I'm not casting aspersions on Empire of Light. It's just it doesn't.
It wasn't
live with
1917. I know. I know what you're saying. I mean, it's like, how do you follow 1917 though? Too. That's incredible.
You want to hear something funny? If you Google Roger Deakins, one of the first things that comes up is, why is Roger Deakins so good?
It's a good question.
Well, Cole, I think we've taken about as much of your time as well, I could take some more of your time, but before we go,
you look totally awake right now. We should let's see how late we can keep her up.
Well, I was kind of not hoping, but my grandma might have passed away while we were doing this podcast, and I was just going to torture Ben by saying, like, "You've taken so long, my grandma actually died."
oh my God.
Because we have very dark senses of humor.
Oh
Janelle, I love you, but wow, you really went there just now with that joke. Like, I don't know anyone whose grandmother was on their deathbed and they actually were able to turn it into a joke during a podcast like this. This is pretty
turned
incredible.
Off the machine about an hour ago, and she is, as of my last text, still with us. So kind of ruins the I mean, I'm happy for that, I guess, but it kind of ruins the joke.
I hope
she's 103. Everyone.
She had a
great
run.
Lived a very good life.
Oh my God, that's incredible.
Wow.
And thank you for making our Oscar episode bittersweet. So
before we go though, where can people find you online if they want to check out your whatever?
I'm on all the platforms, Instagram and Twitter at Jenelle Riley, spelled JenelleRiley.
Is your Halloween picture up there on Instagram? Can we find that?
Of course it is. I actually did my first and I think only TikTok because I didn't know how to lay. I probably actually asked Ben to do it for me and he was too busy because it was Halloween. But I was trying to lay audio from Everything Everywhere All at Once over this clip. And the only way I knew how to do it was on TikTok. So my first and only TikTok is
I still have yet to do my first TikTok. Excellent. Well, as always, thank you for coming on, and we will see you next year, if not before.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
This has been the Cinematography Podcast, presented by Hot Rod Cameras. Find your next camera, lens, or accessory on the web at hotrodcameras.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our show on iTunes and connect with us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening.